All right. Welcome. It's been more of a time jump for us recording these, but you might be binging these. So hi again after listening to our previous episodes. My name's Kelsey.
And I'm Eric.
And we're doing adaptations. We're talking about book to movies as per usual. And this week is a very special week. If you didn't notice the launch date of this episode, it is 4th of July. So if you couldn't guess what we're doing, then get cultured. So we're doing Jaws.
Dunna.
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 That was more like video game.
I thought Mario.
That was very yeah. So we're going to be talking about Jaws, a quintessential movie from 1975 based on a book that I forget who wrote it.
Peter Benchley.
Yeah. Cool. So let's roll right into it. Log lines, folks. Basically, a shark terrorizes a small town during the peak summer season and must be stopped at any cost.
That sounds right. I was actually thinking on the way over here, because the book and the movie feel so different to me. I'd say the log line for the film is decent people persevere over monsters both in the sea and out. And in the book, I guess I would say, is people spend 200 pages humping and then eventually they got to kill a shark.
That's very true. We got our log lines in the potosphere right now. And let's get right into characters.
Yeah.
Characters, because I would agree with what you said that the book and the movie were so different.
Yeah.
It was like two different things. The only through line was a vicious shark.
Yeah. And structurally, everything about it is told from a different perspective. And a lot of that has to do with the characters and their origins in the story, right? Especially, let's start off with Martin Brody, the chief of police of Amity. In the book, he is a lifelong townie. You know, he is born and bred in this town, so he is very much enmeshed in the politics and culture of the place. And he is, it's weird because he ends up feeling more like a creature of politics in the book than in the movie, which I actually thought after watching the movie, it might only be because you spend so much more time on shore with him, the way it's structured. But he really does feel like he is an honorable person, but very much a cog in the machine, which obviously is divergent from his character in the movie, played by the great Roy Scheider. He is I believe a New York cop who moves to Amity, takes the job at Amity.
I would definitely have to agree with that. It was interesting to have him be a summer person, and there's a very distinction between, in the book, summer and winter people. Yearly people and the people who just come to visit for a little while.
Yeah.
I feel like in the book it was made to be such a huge deal, and there was like little snippets of it in the interpersonal relationships in the movie, but you could have taken that out and it would have been fine. Like, it wasn't a necessary conflict. That was such a big deal.
Yeah.
In the book, when you watched it on screen, there was undertones for sure, but it definitely read way different.
Well, there's less. Everything reads more cynical than it does in the movie. Spielberg, I read a couple articles that basically said when he got the book and read it, he was like, I was rooting for the shark. Every person in this book is an unsympathetic character, and that I the sense is that once he got to the last, I think it was I was looking at. I turned the side of my book at one point to see how much was left, and we don't get on the boat really into the last third of the book.
Oh yeah. Well, the final boat.
Yeah, the final boat, the boat.
Yeah.
The Orca.
Yeah.
And it is such a. It's very hard. He makes it very hard eventually to identify with these people, especially, I think, next up, his wife.
Yes. I believe her name is Ellen.
Yes.
Ellen Brody. And so I like doing, I think for this one, it would be kind of good to go between every character, the difference between
because they are stark.
The book and the movie, because it's basically two different characters. Yeah. There can't even be a through line through most of everybody, right? And all the secondary plots that are in the book that to me are kind of extraneous. But for Ellen, she was a summary person who married a local. And that was a huge dynamic of her character, of kind of what she lost, a sense of FOMO for the summer people that came to visit, and the wealth and the fancifulness, because she doesn't have that on Amity during the rest of the year. So she kind of misses her old life. And to an extent, I think she regrets marrying Brody, or Martin Brody, for the majority of the book.
She's in a crisis when we get to this thing.
She is. She's very like, but it comes off as like, oh, I regret my decision. I should probably just get divorced. Yeah. Right? But she's too high strung to get a divorce. Yeah. So she's just living in her poor situation that she doesn't like. Yeah. So that's the book Ellen. The movie Ellen comes off because she's an outsider. And there's a couple lines, especially like she was at the beach in the middle of the movie and she's talking to a couple and they're like, well, you'll never be a summer person because you weren't born here. Yeah. And there's some of her reaction of being like hurt by that statement.
But only in kind of a lightly social.
But only in like a light social way. Like in the book, I feel like that was Spielberg poking fun at that entire storyline.
That's a good point.
It's of like, you'll never be a summer person. And if it was book Ellen, she'd be like, oh no, I'm not accepted. Yeah. And in the movie, she's just like, yeah, I gotta protect my fucking kids like a normal mother would when there's a shark situation around. So,
well, she's not resentful. Like she's in this weird place in the book where she's openly resentful of the what she perceives as the low culture of the town because she's more highborn and she comes from money, and she's constantly trying to reconnect with people from her old life.
Yeah, and I feel like and we had this in other episodes where there's just more room to play in a book. Yeah, in this instance, too much room.
Too much room to play.
I was like, I just want to skip through the Ellen parts. I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. Same with Spielberg, where he didn't have any sympathy. No sympathy for this wealthy woman who has 3 beautiful children, and like I get certain situations are hard to swallow, and it is a universal experience. She's kind of a bitch through most of the book, in terms of like unrelatability. I just did not like her in the book. I liked her way better in the movie when she was more of a secondary character.
Well, they're New Yorkers. I mean, they're in the movie. They're an urbane couple. Yeah. Where like it's being the 70s. She's accepted certain social roles in her life. The movie never establishes that she has any kind of career or job outside of home. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you get the sense that between the two of them, there is genuine respect and affection. Yeah. It never like they are such a naturally charming couple, and they both have so much. They're both decent people, fundamentally decent people, who have concern for other people.
Yeah. I think that is a huge part of the simplicity that Spielberg brought to the movie of what are the different conflicts? Man versus man, man versus nature, man versus himself. Yeah. This was a man versus nature story. Yeah. Through and through. In the book, it tried to be all three. Yeah. And it didn't have a focus. Yeah. Throughout the whole thing, I was like, who is the enemy? Everyone is the enemy. Like, there's nothing good in this. Like, there's no good motivation through any of this.
It's so convoluted. And they established this whole subplot with the politics of the town. And that brings us to Mayor Larry Vaughn. Yep. Who... people are accustomed to a character in the movie as one of the classic all-time like prevaricators and like naysayers until finally he's proven wrong. Mm-hmm. But in the book, they go to this entire subplot where he's in with the mob.
It's so weird.
The mob is buying up all of the vacation homes that he owns because he went in debt when his wife was sick.
There's like 5 full pages of them trying to describe the dynamic of the mob situation. At the very end, it's like, okay.
It's because it's
and then fucking like the cat getting murdered from the mobster saying like, don't fuck with our real estate. things.
Yeah. From a shark to a lone shark.
Yeah, literally low shark to a low shark. Like, my thought around that was like, okay, so if you closes the beaches, you're fucked.
Yeah.
If a shark kills people, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So either way, your real estate is fucked.
Yeah.
Why are you killing this poor kid's cat in front of him?
Yeah.
Which, spoiler alert, one of Brody's sons has a cat, and they like literally wring his neck. I was actually genuinely pissed off at that part, not only because my cat is sitting across the room from me right now,
Yeah.
but also the way Brody literally just dragged this fucking cat by his legs and threw him in his squat car.
Yeah.
No sense of respect for cat.
It's grim.
It's grim.
It's really grim. This book, the interpersonal relationships that in this book are so depressing that I was like excited when the shark showed up. I was excited that the shark was eating people. Yeah. Because there is that you're never motivated to care for these, because it's also like, there are some very like 70s allusions to racial politics that are extremely uncomfortable.
Illusions.
And like it's outright statements about they keep referring to. And so I think this is where it's interesting to talk about Benchley's background. He's a guy who worked for LBJ in his communications department, and who went on to work for the news after that. I think was an editor in a New York news station. And I think you see a guy it's a time when I think personalities like that were a big deal. Like you had personalities who were also known as writers. And like I think Carl Sagan was like a classic 70s personality. He is known socially as much as he is as a writer and a scientist. And I think he was struggling to create a conflict and a tension in a town based on what he would feel were sort of gritty assessments of like 70s politics, but they just come off as being cruel and really diminishing estimations of people. Yeah. Really brutal.
Now, I have to fact check. Was this set in the 70s?
I don't know, because I don't know if they ever specified.
It reads 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Like in their...
I actually had the same
in their tonation of like those racial comments, and like the wife staying home or only volunteering at the hospital for her job.
And that's where like it felt very much out of time in that sense. Hold on.
Okay. It never specifies.
Yeah, so here's what I'll argue.
But it reads
very
earlier.
It reads earlier, but here's the thing. I think that has as much to do with Benchley's inadequacy as a novelist as it does with, because I also think it's probably his assessment of a small town.
Oh, yeah.
I think is having, and especially because also in the 70s, I mean, tensions were still high, especially like this is a time when like there was a lot of social change and upheaval. And I think he was, in his estimation, this might very well have been like this town in the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I don't know his background at all, but I definitely don't think he was from a small town. It read like an outsider writing small town people.
And I'm sure that there were, and frankly still are, some small towns that do that. But I think it ties back into Spielberg's criticism of the material, which is that it's just an inherently very cynical piece of storytelling.
Oh, yeah. Do you think, and I just had this random thought right now, do you think that the shark is representative of something within the political climate at the time it was written, because he was such a political figure?
I don't think he's a good enough writer to do that. I think, so what's funny is, this is, I believe, was his biggest success. And then after that, I think he did some screenwriting, and he did this and that and the other. And I think he made a mint off of Jaws itself, because it was such a mega hit.
Not from him, not from Spielberg, yeah.
Because he took a couple passes at the screenplay, and he kept handing in it. I think he was even honest about his own assessment of it, saying like, I don't really have a feel. Like I can get you some of the mechanics of the story and once again of the ocean, some of that. But once they handed it over to Carl Gottlieb, who was obviously, he wrote for The Odd Couple. So this is a guy who writes characters and writes comedy and understands comedy pretty well, and like understands character dynamics. And you see that a lot in the relationships between the characters once they get onto the boat, specifically with our captain, our intrepid captain, Mr. Quint.
I thought you were going to say Brody. We have to come back to Brody, but
yeah.
I mean, Hopper, sorry. Hopper's the other character, but Quint, I loved. So Quint is a hardy-looking fisherman who's tasked somewhat early on to catch the shark.
Yeah.
He basically, in both adaptations, says the reward you have for catching the shark is not high enough.
Yeah.
I will do it for more money.
Yeah.
The big difference, and I said this to myself when I was watching it, I loved the fact that in the movie he came in within the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's great.
He's a big player. Like, why in the book was he coming in after halfway?
It was a huge bummer because I read that passage where they cut to him on the boat with his mate.
Yeah.
And he's doing a charter or whatever. And then I'm like, oh man, maybe this is about to get good. And then it doesn't.
You're just like, oh yeah, that guy. Okay, well, whatever. He'll come back later. And the movie, it was paced so well and succinctly, and you got this character who plays a huge role in the whole latter half of the movie right away.
Yeah.
He's given to you as somebody who's going to come back. And when you come back, you're like, fuck yeah. His speech in the room, so good.
The nails on the chalkboard.
Oh my God. Come on. The doodle of the shark. Come on.
Well, and Robert Shaw, because this is a movie where the entire cast went through like a bunch of rotations before they settled on. And it's a clear example of where like some of it was scheduling inconvenience, some of it was this and that and the other. But they could not have settled on a better team for these characters.
Oh, no.
Like it's there isn't really a wrong note in the cast. And Robert Shaw is just perfection.
He is fisherman.
Yeah.
He is fisherman.
In a way that feels more authentic than the character in the book, who I don't like very much. I don't like as much.
So the character in the book was very money driven.
Yeah.
And was alluded to having a ulterior motive.
Until the bitter end, which is an interesting character change.
Yeah. Well, so in the book, it made no sense. So a big plot point, folks, is when he hits the radio with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And it's a big part because you're like, well, fuck, Dark Knight of the Soul, what are we going to do now?
Yeah. And
in the book, you're like, why the fuck did he do that?
Yeah.
But in the movie, it's more during the conversation over drinks. It's kind of like his inborn hate of this shark.
Yeah.
For a very specific reason.
Yeah.
Is alluded to in his first speech.
Yeah.
You understood the magnitude of why he was going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, money is a thing, which is why they didn't hire him right away.
Yeah.
But it was more important, the fight against the shark, than money. And the book seemed more motivated way more by money.
What's interesting in the book is that he is just a charter fisherman who's just trying to make a buck. He's an ex-soldier. He's trying to make a buck on the ocean, and he doesn't really become a personal challenge until Hooper is killed, and he all of a sudden adopts the Ahab mode of like, well, I gotta kill.
And you think that that's the only reason why he wants to kill this fucking fish?
Yeah.
Which
it's true. Well, because he has a grudge against this thing because he doesn't want to be proven wrong or dumber than the shark.
Yeah.
Because his constant argument is that sharks are dumb. They're just garbage eaters. And like there's a variations on a theme of behavior, but once you set a range, sharks can only behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And this is a shark that he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
However, there's another guy who understands sharks quite well, and that is Mr. Matt Hooper.
Matthew. So coming back to in the very beginning of this, he is an oceanic shark expert.
He is an ichthyologist.
Yeah, sure.
and oceanographer.
Oceanographer. That's the word I was trying to come up with.
Yeah.
But he, in the dynamic of the book, is a summary.
Yeah.
He is a summer guy. He's wealthy. He's hot. He's like blonde hair, blue eyes, tan, with a little alligator emblem on his polo.
Yeah.
Right. And for Ellen, in the book, this entire subplot that we're going to go into got cut, and I was so happy it fucking got cut. It was so stupid.
Unbelievable.
Oh my God. I honestly, when I went back to watch the movie, because I saw it a while ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank God it's So Ellen has an affair with Matthew Hooper. Okay. She has a extraneous affair where she's a piece of shit and he's a piece of shit. And they have a very odd sexual encounter in a motel that Brody, the police chief, is trying to figure out for most of the time. He does.
Yeah.
He figures it out. But at that point, Hooper's dead.
Yeah.
After he figures that out. So it's like a moot point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But basically, it was even weirder to me where like Ellen, okay. Ellen's older than him. That's fine.
Sure.
He literally was the kid brother of a guy she used to date.
Sure.
That was weird to me.
Yeah.
Where she only knew him as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, he's hot. Oh.
Yeah.
And right off the cuff, she's like clearly going to fuck this guy.
Oh, yeah.
No subtlety whatsoever.
Yeah.
Poor Brody, who literally is just in his little small town world trying to help people from getting eaten by a shark. And she's too much detail about her cheating on her husband.
The extended scenes in the restaurant where they go for lunch in Sag Harbor.
That whole conversation, I was like, this is fucking weird.
It is so out of place. It is such a smutty sort of like off ramp. And here's the thing: I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. Do whatever you want.
I love me a good smut, but come on.
Well, because it's not. Again, the problem with this book is that Benchley's execution is just so amateurish that he jumps from one trope to another, which also probably explains why the book was so successful.
Yeah.
Because it was an extraordinary hit. I mean, that's why it was adapted in the first place. Is it was a bestseller for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I will say that reading the smutty part at the restaurant.
Yeah.
I read every Bridgerton, folks. I know what good smut is in terms of period pieces, right?
Yeah.
The descriptors of their conversation were coming literally maybe from his personal perspective of what he thinks would be sexy.
Yeah.
Right? It's his personal taste.
Yeah.
Leave it. I don't care what you do behind closed doors, dude. I do not care.
Yeah.
But to basically throw that image, and I'm not sure if this is like a feminist perspective or not, but throwing that image of what bothered me the most was, what do you have fantasies about? Is what Matthew like asked her, and she goes, like rape.
Yeah.
I'm like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Like
it was very jarring.
It was very jarring. I was like, I had to reread it. I was like, that's not real. She goes into like the description of like a fake assault that turns into a sexual encounter that she's having a fantasy about.
Yeah.
And folks, like I said, each their own. You do that. But it does not match with the character of Ellen.
No.
It also does not match with the character of Matthew.
Yeah.
Presented in the first third of the book.
Yeah.
Those things do not correlate whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to say Ellen had a fantasy about being taken to a fancy ass restaurant and given all the jewels in the world, and they, sleep together on a pile of money.
Sure. Yeah.
That gears towards Ellen.
Yeah.
Because she wishes she was rich again.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Right.
She wants to be at the club.
Yeah.
She wants to have a membership of the club. She wants to be part of society.
Hey, we have sex in the locker room at the club.
Yeah.
That's more on brand for Ellen. And for Matthew, he's sleeping with his brother's older ex-girlfriend. It would have been more apt for him to be like, you are my fantasy.
Yeah.
Right? That would have been such a better thing of like her describing all of these in-depth things and him going, you're my fantasy.
Yeah.
And then cut to them sleeping together. Like, that would have been so much better because no other part of that scene made any sense for either of those characters.
Well, and that's the problem with Ellen overall is so I think what's interesting here is that there might be elements of her character that as written seemed very worldly for the 1970s that might have seemed a certain way, but it's also from the closed off perspective again of a man, Benchley, who's trying to sort of draw out the picture of a woman who is having this enormous existential crisis. But the problem is that it develops. She has this affair with Hooper, and then by the end, with seemingly no work between them and no particular explanation, except for the other existential dread of a shark eating.
Yeah,
that she's just like, oh well, whatever, it was a thing. And I guess I love Martin after all. Like,
I love my husband now that he almost died.
Like if you're gonna write it in that there's infidelity, then you have to address that breakdown in the relationship in a meaningful way by the end of the book. And he just wants to excuse it by that point to get it off of his list of things to do.
Yeah.
Because by the end of the book, he's finally settled into the one section of the book that at times is mildly effective, and that's the hunt on the ship.
The hunt on the ship, yeah.
This is in stark contrast to the movie, which has so much economy of pacing, and this is why Spielberg launched into the stratosphere of this movie.
Yeah,
because there are, watching this, I had this thought of there are better movies. I've seen better films, but as a distillation of everything that Spielberg loves about movies, and that the screenwriter Carl Gottlieb loves about movies, and all of the high caliber work that this cast was able to put in, it is such a beautifully paced film that depicts everybody in the film as a real person with their own motivations and their own needs and their own insecurities, but in a way that doesn't make it all about those insecurities. Because if you have an actual challenge to your livelihood and your economy and your way of life, which is what this is, then all of a sudden you have to find a way to deal with all those things.
Yeah. He basically it seemed to me in the book, he got a little overwhelmed and was just like, okay, well, I'm running out of page time.
Well, he was thinking like a newsman.
Yeah. He was thinking like, I need to wrap these up cleanly, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter in the details.
Yeah.
It's a book. The devil is in the details. Like the pacing, honestly, at the best fight part of the book, I was eye skimming.
Yeah, sure.
On the hunt. I was like,
because it's basically at that point it is what it is. They make some minor alterations in the movie. It's one expedition once they go to sea.
Yeah.
In the book, if they come back and they go to shore.
It was multiple. It was so drawn out. I was like, just shark, kill them already.
That's the thing. Is that that's the problem with that book, is that the shark is the only character that makes any sense, because the shark eats people and then swims away.
Yeah.
And it's entirely consistent. It's not like it's not off like having sex with another shark on its shark spouse's back.
Yeah.
Like there's no useless like waste of pages. It's just he's a shark and he does his thing.
I think that was the only positive portrayal in the whole book, was this shark isn't changing his tune.
Yeah.
He's doing sharky things.
Yeah.
It's not it's surprising when he pops up, because he's doing, patterns that are sporadic for a shark, but he's still a shark. He doesn't know any better.
It's the whatever. I mean, Richard Dreyfuss has become a real dickhead, but it is such a special performance, because he is so good at projecting that sort of academic focus on something that he has studied intensely.
Mm-hmm.
And when he has to butt heads with like the mayor about like what the shark is and what it does, and it's like, here's the thing. Here's what it does. It is a shark. It eats and it swims and it makes more sharks. Yeah. And that's what it does. Like,
it's beautiful.
And because he's just trying to explain it to this dude who's like, doesn't understand what's about to happen.
Yeah.
There's that great scene in the shot where they're at the billboard, which had been defaced with that paint.
Yeah.
And he looks over, he says, Mr. Mayor, take a look at that billboard. That fin is to scale.
Yeah.
Like it is an electrifyingly good movie.
Oh.
In a way that inspired other movies to be good.
Oh, for sure. The entire, there's so many Jaws movies. I went there's so many. Like, I haven't seen any other ones. And
I've seen a few of them.
I'm not going to watch them again.
I haven't seen 2, which I hear is just okay. I've seen Jaws 3D. I've seen Jaws the Revenge.
Okay.
It's a series that gets just unhinged.
It's like Sharknado.
It's unhinged.
Yeah.
At some point, I think it's Jaws the Revenge. I think it's that Martin has died in the intervening years.
Oh, because it's been forever.
Yeah. It's something happened to him.
Yeah.
And then the shark follows them to the Bahamas. It's crazy. And then she kills the shark the way
Ellen does?
Kills the shark she kills the shark in that movie the way he kills the shark in this movie.
Okay.
Like they even have the same line. It's God, it's
stop.
insane.
No, I must watch all of these.
But the first movie is like
awesome.
It's a monument.
Yeah. Right? So the scene you're talking about with Hopper is a Hooper.
Hooper.
Mr. Hooper
yeah.
in the movie. The character difference between the two Hoopers extremely different. So obviously we mentioned in passing that he's more an intellectual. He's more of a nerd.
Yeah.
He has no eyes on Ellen whatsoever in the movie, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
He is the shark guy. He's not the affair and shark guy.
And they make him rich, but they make him rich in a way that's an aside. They're on his boat. He's like, how'd you afford all that shit? And he's like, oh, I'm rich.
I'm rich. Like, obviously. And they're like, okay, yeah, that's not the important factor. The fact is you have all these fancy tools.
And he knows it, and he's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, he has a real soft spot about it, which is very funny.
So I love the fact that in the movie he lives.
Yeah.
Right? Fucking the book, kill that guy in a cage. And you knew it was going to happen. You're like, yeah, get in the water, finally dies
here. Because the book wants him to die. It treats him like a creep.
Yeah, he is a creep. He's a cretin. And everyone's like, don't go in that cage. He's like, I'm going to go in that cage and take a photo. And then he gets fucking dead.
Because that's the key difference is in the book, he's just like, oh, I'm going to take a picture of the shark.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, he's trying to kill the shark.
There was the photo time where he's like, go to the edge of the boat and I need scale reference. And then they're like,
but once he goes
stop.
To the cage, she's like, if I can get down there, I can inject this strychnine like into the shark and do it. And they're like, you're like, do you have any better ideas? And it's like, it's an amazing scene that gives him a backbone.
Yeah.
He really does care about the outcome of the situation.
Yeah, he really does. Even though he loves sharks so much, he wants to kill that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
By that point, and that's the great thing about the if there's a metaphor in any of this, it's that you have these three radically different guys, radically different people who have to really cooperate to solve this problem.
Oh yeah.
And it's just so beautifully staged, and it's
love it.
What a movie.
What a movie.
Yeah.
Well, that's the episode, folks. What a movie.
The end.
Well, we actually got through a lot of the plot. So basically in the book there is a bunch of extraneous shit that leads to a very long hunt on Quint's boat. Yeah. And then shark dies ambiguously, dragging
because
Quint down to the bottom.
Sustained injuries. Because I think in the book they make it very clear that like they've hooked him with the barrels and they've got him with this and that and the other thing, and they've shot him a couple of times.
And they still get Quint. He gets Quint at the end. But
then he dies and sinks to the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a very anticlimactic ending.
Yeah. The movie's better.
It is better. And it's unbelievable how much the movie surpasses this book in every meaningful way.
That it usually doesn't happen, guys.
It's very rare.
Either it's on par or the book is better.
I've heard the same thing about The Godfather, for example, which is like the book it's kind of schlocky and not great. And then they bring in Mario Puzo, the author, and they're like, so here's the idea, write us a treatment, work with Coppola.
Oh, like Doug Coppola.
Yeah. And then like they churn out a piece of entertainment that is just better. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's the thing is I also think it has something to do with the fact that like this is still in a time when publication was a thriving form of entertainment.
It was really one of the only forms. There wasn't so much media doing GIFs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so reading was a more commonplace leisure activity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes sense that you'd have a lot of these things that got really big in the way that you'll have movies that aren't terribly good, but get huge because they're like, well, it's air conditioning, it's popcorn, there's a decent plot, and I like so-and-so, whoever's in it, and whoever the lead is. I think it came from a time when you could get a schlocky book out there, but it's popular enough that studio is optioning off the rights. I mean, they were doing that left and right because you can also extract some really good stories from that material.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's unbelievable how much better the movie is.
Some things I think, and I was talking to my partner about this morning, how dynamic the movie was because it really used not the rule of thumb of a horror movie, but they don't show what's actually doing the damage until later on.
Well, it's Hitchcock. And Spielberg even talked about I am making a Hitchcock movie.
Yeah. The book, you immediately, right off the cuff, I was reading the first shark attack and I was like, this is fucking brutal and gory and I don't enjoy reading this whatsoever. It's too detailed in terms of ripping this woman into shreds.
Yeah.
Versus the movie, so effective because it didn't show.
Yeah.
You didn't see what was really going on. You had the allusions to the shark until the very end. And then you see the shark and you're like, this is fake. But I still enjoy it because you've led me to this part in the story or I care.
Well, and you don't have to spend that much time looking at the mechanical shark.
Yeah.
He is very wise in not displaying the shark to an excessive degree. And I will say that there's a sequence, I don't know why it never hit me like this before, but it's on the 4th of July when the beaches are open.
Mm-hmm.
They do a really good job with the shark coming up, surfacing for water, taking somebody down, dragging them down. Like in those limited shots, the way that they shoot it looks incredible and is really, really scary.
Oh, the 4th of July one where the kid gets got? Yeah.
He's dragging him down, and like it's the shark surfaces, grabs, and then like
there's a little bit of thrashing, but it's not to the extent.
And you see it from a distance too.
Yeah.
There's one quick shot of the shark actually surfacing, grabbing, and then the rest of it is from a distance.
Yeah.
And it's so effective and so scary.
It's great. And like because it's more important people's reaction to the shark, not the actual shark attack.
Yeah, 100%.
Throughout the whole movie. Like, I don't need to see a kid get ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
Unless you're into gore, which I don't think that's the point of this movie.
No.
It's fear.
It's a movie about fear and panic.
Yeah.
And I think it's also the idea of this town has built its life on enjoying this resource that the shark naturally inhabits.
Yeah.
So the shark isn't doing right or wrong. The shark is just living and eating.
Doing sharky thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta respect him for that, I guess.
Yeah.
But
it's the sense of like how far can humans encroach on an environment and an environ that they weren't meant to inhabit. And like it's a question about the balance of nature and civilization.
Yeah. And that goes back to man versus nature. That should be the crux of the shark movie, and it is.
Yeah.
Book doesn't know what the crux is.
Correct.
So, man, what a joy.
Yeah.
It was just better.
It's odd. It is.
What was the last 20 minutes? It's just good, guys.
It's just us being like, it's just so much better.
So much better. There's not a lot of fat to trim off this shark boy.
No.
Yeah, which is great. Let's see. We already talked about all of the sequels. Now let's talk about, does this deserve a remake? And will it be a movie or a TV show?
I'm not usually terribly fuddy-duddy-ish about this. I don't ever want to see this adapted again. I don't ever want to see it adapted or remade. I think Spielberg made as good an adaptation as you could have gotten out of this material. I think it is a lean, vicious entertainment machine, much like the shark itself.
Yeah.
It's constantly moving. And it is unbeatable as a thrill ride, as the picture of a town is like, it is birds-like in its effectiveness of like, in that Hitchcockian sense of like, we're going to show you just enough about the private lives of the people in this town and then how they deal with this crisis and the aftermath of it. Like, yeah, I never want to see this stuff.
It's all right. I'm going to have to agree and also posit a secondary story for you that I just came up with right now. So I agree the first book or the first movie should never be remade. It's Gucci. Yeah. Keep it. Yeah. Love it. It actually works really well with the style of being filmed in the 70s.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Would not do well here in modern era.
Right.
Book source material wise, not even worth it. I think you would be able to make an adaptation, if anything, of the movie, like a remake of the exact movie.
Sure.
If you wanted better effects, but I don't think you need to. So
yeah.
I will say if any other secondary stories were to be done about this, it would be not by that author.
Yeah.
And be maybe from like the grown son's perspective.
Yeah.
From the trauma of kids during this whole thing.
Which actually does become a theme in the films.
Damn.
They do. Here's the thing. And here's why I think nobody ever touched this ever again. Is because they tried to develop stories based on those things. Jaws 2 arguably was the best version of that. And even that, people were like, it's all right. It's fine.
Damn. I want to explore childhood trauma when people are grown up.
Don't we all?
Oh, we love it. All right, so we concluded, Swader, that this should never be remade, yet we know it will be remade because money.
Yeah, eventually everything.
Yeah, it'll be remade. Book, rank it out of 10 for me. The book, And then obviously we know the 10 out of 10 for the film.
Oh, easy. Yeah, spoiler alert, big spoiler, 10 out of 10 for the movie. I mean, it's just like it's a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah.
God, the book. I give it a 2, just because it had the kernel of the idea that became the movie. Like, I'll say this: the last third, you get some interesting dynamics with Quint and his lack of perspective as a hunter on, like, when you have to respect the thing that doesn't want to be hunted.
That you're hunting, yeah.
And he's undone really by his lack of respect for this creature, and it's because he thinks he can beat it.
That's true.
He's smarter. And so there's some interesting stuff in the end there, but even that's like, it's just no.
I would rank it a 2 as well, because 1, it gave that kernel of the story,
Sure.
and 2, it's a book.
Yeah,
I've never.
sure.
He finished a book.
He finished a book.
I don't know.
Yeah. Under
higher than 3.
under machine gun fire, he was having a hard time as a writer. He wasn't sure who was going to make it.
Yeah.
And he finally pitched this to his publisher.
Yeah. I'd say. I mean, he did the thing. He did more than me. I haven't read the book yet in the process, but it's a book.
Yeah. Read a book.
Read a book. I mean, I've read worse books.
Yeah, I have too. Yeah,
I've read AI pitches of books.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
They're definitely not good.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say much, folks. So, well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
For another episode of Adaptation, and we will be back soon.
Yeah.
With another book. Look around for the blog that coordinates with some of the previous episodes. We'll be releasing those as we go, and life is busy, so we'll see what happens with that. Follow us on everything Adaptation Pod, including on X, which I never use. So, all right, Sweeter. Bye.
Bye, and don't go too far out in the ocean.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.